There's a lot of drama going on that might result in a world record being DNF'd, and even the WCA breaking apart. How did this all happen? It started about 100 days ago with this world record average, where Yiheng got a .78 2x2 average. This was a crazy good average, and a lot of people were suspicious. And when they slowed down the solves, they realized that the time on the display is faster than the actual solve itself. And this is possible because of sliding, which pretty much lets you hold the cube before even starting the timer. And that's clearly seen from this post, where you can see all the frames where Yiheng started the timer. And these don't look very legal. To demonstrate sliding, I'll be doing a 4 mover on 2x2. Here's me doing it normally. 0.44, not too bad, but now let me do it with sliding. 0.16. With sliding, you start with the cube pretty much in your hands already. And as you can see, that saves quite a bit of time depending on how much you slide. Now obviously when this was found out, a lot of people were upset. And pretty much everyone was saying this is illegal and these should be DNF'd. So he was confirmed to be sliding, but is this actually legal? Well, there is precedent for this. I go over this more in my previous video, but the WRC, or the Regulations Committee, established that if timer starts and stops look fine to the eye, then there should be no penalties. Their argument is that requiring frame-by-frame analysis is unfair to the competitor. And there were several instances since then where people were caught with questionable timer starts, but there were no penalties because of this rule. This was all decided by the WRC. Keep that in mind. Because Yiheng Wang's solves look pretty good in real time, the assumption was that this rule would also apply to Yiheng. But on the other hand, this is just really bad precedent. If this is allowed, can everyone just start sliding? To prove how dumb this was, people did start to slide unofficially. Hassan Kanani got a .69 average doing it, which he mentioned was obviously a joke and he didn't plan to do it in competition. Sid Reddy also got a .78 average of it, just showing how sliding would make your solve so much faster. So there's a lot of discussion and a lot of good points being made, but the key thing was that the WCA never responded. The .78 was never DNF'd, but at the same time, delegates were saying that sliding was illegal. So people were obviously confused. Why can't we slide if the world record holder is sliding? After almost 100 days without a response, Hassan Kanani took it into his own hands. He got a .94 2x2 average, which was third in the world. But randomly, his fourth solve got DNF'd. The reason why is he was caught sliding. Here is that solve. As you can see, he was clearly sliding, and this is a very obvious case of it. He was turning the cube for over a second before he lifted his hand off the timer. So it made sense why the solve was DNF'd. But he was not purposely trying to cheat. This was more of a protest to show that sliding was dumb and to bring up the question again of why the world record uses this technique. And his protest actually worked. People were talking a lot more about this issue and even saying free Hassan. With everyone talking about this issue and asking the WCA what's going on, they were forced to release a statement. Here's where the drama happens. So as a reminder, please don't attack or go after anyone in this video, and keep the comments civil. Alright, let's get into it. So there were two statements made on the forums here. First was the WRC statement. They mentioned their intent of the previous ruling. They didn't want to penalize competitors who didn't really get an advantage by accidentally breaking a regulation, especially one that required video to actually see. This circumstance is a bit different though. There are cubers that have an unfair advantage by sliding, which becomes a huge factor of the overall time. After realizing this, they're allowing frame-by-frame video review. Their goal is to protect integrity of high-level solves, so records or personal records of top solvers can have their solves under review. Review can check for timer starts, which is the important thing here, but can also remove penalties and check for cheating. And they would start following this process immediately, essentially banning sliding forever. This is a pretty good statement. They recognize sliding is bad, can give unfair advantages, and are pretty much banning it. However, there's no mention of Yiheng Wang in the statement. But now, let's look at the WCA board's statement right afterwards. They decided that the .78 average should still stand. Their argument is that this is a new rule that the WRC brought up, and Yiheng had no clue about it. Therefore, it's not fair to penalize him on a new rule, so the .78 should still stand. Yeah, this was pretty bad, and they got ratioed pretty hard here. Just look at some of these comments on this forum post. There's now a world record that does not follow the WCA regulations, and a delegate is saying this. Worst decision I've ever heard. So sliding was used to break the world record, but competitors can't use sliding? And now there's a precedent that if you find some loophole, you can get away with it and set an unbeatable world record. Because they're not allowed to DNF you with a new rule, apparently. But even crazier was this new rumor, that apparently the WRC wanted to penalize the .78, but the board overturned it. And this rumor turned out to be true. And we all know this because there was an email leaked from the WRC, so I'll cover the main points. Initially, the WRC did want to penalize the .78. It didn't make sense to have a world record that broke the WCA regulations. However, the WCA board did not agree. They thought it was already established that you can't use video and slow motion to DNF an average. The WRC said that's not a regulation though. This was a completely new situation that had to be treated differently. Finally, the WRC did a vote, where pretty much everyone agreed to DNF this average, regardless of the board's opinion. Then, the board doubled down, essentially saying that they could veto everything, which was argued to be overstepping on their power. This is obviously a bad look for the board. So, here's their response, which explained why they made these decisions. They clarified that they had no communication with Yiheng Wang, claiming that there was no favoritism. They also mentioned how their decision was backed by all the members of the board. Their main argument is that they want fair and equal conditions for all competitors. In the past, the WRC already made this rule that you can't just slow down someone's video and DNF them because of something you notice from slowing down the video. But now that Yiheng did it, they're changing their stance. Also, they believe some WRC members were biased. Members were saying that these solves look good in real time, but after seeing the frame-by-frame analysis, voted to penalize the average. This goes against their whole idea that if it looks good in real time, then it's good. They eventually couldn't agree to penalize these attempts because it's just not consistent with precedent. But once again, they got ratioed, with people questioning their decision to overrule the WRC, and people saying that the WCA board was not being consistent at all, because some people were getting penalized for sliding and some people were not. With all this tension being built up, there is a legitimate movement to impeach the board, and people are thinking about calling a special meeting to address this very important case. And that's when this document was posted, titled Magna Carta. And a quick Google search shows that the Magna Carta was the first document to put into writing the idea that a king and his government was not above the law. Similar situation here. Because WCA staff seemed to have lost trust in the board, this document called to vote to keep or remove board members. And they called for a special meeting to discuss this. The goal wasn't necessarily to DNF Yiheng's average and everyone that has ever slid, but more just the board being more transparent, and possibly reformat the WCA so that a few people don't have this much power. There's a lot more in this letter, but I'm honestly too lazy to read it. But it did get a ton of traction and a lot of signatures, to the point where there's actually going to be a meeting. This is officially going to happen on October 19th and has been officially announced by the WCA. And it'll be streamed on Twitch. But I just want to bring up one final point, brought up by Carter, who leads the WRC. This whole situation might be frustrating, but there's no point on hating on the board, or in fact any other WCA members. They all work really hard, and most of them are unpaid. Are there legitimate concerns? Yeah, but it's also fair to say that this situation has gone too out of hand. Both the WRC and the WCA board were in a tough spot. On one hand, sliding should be banned and rightfully so. On the other hand, is DNFing the .78 so easy? If you want to DNF all sliding, the .78 has to go. But how about all the other people that have slid in the past? And all of Yiheng's 2x2 averages, should they all be DNF'd? Even the ones without video? It's honestly a tough spot, and hopefully we get some peaceful resolution soon.